Jamaica, a nation of sheep and goats. This passage is intended to make us uncomfortable. Lion King Footballing Entertainment. Like, share and subscribe. How Jamaica eventually became a sheep nation through Christianity. We need to remind them of their primary identity of sheep in the flock, and that God sends prophets to remind them of who they are. William Wilberforce called Christians not to embrace the goat practice of England, which supported the African slave trade. Wilberforce worked towards legislation to dismantle the practice altogether. Dietrich Bonhoeffer called the church in Germany to resist the dehumanizing cult of the Nazi regime. In the US, Martin Luther King Jr.'s letter from Birmingham jail called the white sheep in the United States to stop turning a blind eye and stand alongside the black community in protesting the discriminatory practices of the nation. Through these prophets, the sheep were called to return to their identity as sheep and stand against the inhumane treatment of the vulnerable of the nation. Through King and Wilberforce, the nation itself became a bit more sheep-like. Yet these nations never really become sheep. I don't believe there is such thing as a Christian nation outside of those who have sworn allegiance to the King. Jesus says, all the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate them one from another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He's talking about separating the nations, not people. In Daniel and Enoch, the animals represent nations, not individuals. Of course, nations are comprised of people, but let's be careful in too quickly saying that the goats and sheep are individual people. Let's think about this passage in the terms Jesus uses, with the sheep and the goats representing nations. Jesus says that there are basically two types of nations, goats and sheep. And there are some big differences between goats and sheep. Goats are sent off to eternal punishment. Sheep, on the other hand, inherit the kingdom. I wonder if that gives us a clue as to the identity of the sheep. The sheep are shown to be citizens of the kingdom of God. The sheep are shown to be subjects of the King, who is Jesus. Jesus is using the symbol of sheep, the sheep who are always a symbol for Israel, yet Jesus takes this symbol and reshapes it. Here the sheep are subjects of the King, and that King is Jesus. The sheep are those who have been serving Jesus. The sheep represents the nation which has allegiances to King Jesus. To me, this suggests that sheep are followers of Jesus, the shepherd. That's us. Our citizenship is not of this world, but belongs to the kingdom of God. The goats are those who do not serve Jesus. In separating the nations, he separates those who are his subjects from those that are not. The other attribute that distinguishes the sheep from the goats is the way that they care for the least of these, the ones Jesus identifies as his brothers and sisters. In satisfying hunger and thirst, in welcoming the stranger, in clothing the naked, in caring for the sick and imprisoned, the sheep are revealed as sheep. In their neglect of those same people, the goats are revealed as goats. The shepherd. That's us. Our citizenship is not of this world, but belongs to the kingdom of God. The goats are those who do not serve Jesus. In separating the nations, he separates those who are his subjects from those that are not. The other attribute that distinguishes the sheep from the goats is the way that they care for the least of these, the ones Jesus identifies as his brothers and sisters. In satisfying hunger and thirst, in welcoming the stranger, in clothing the naked, in caring for the sick and imprisoned, the sheep are revealed as sheep. In their neglect of those same people, the goats are revealed as goats. Here is where I think it is helpful to say that the sheep and goats are nations. It seems that the emphasis here is on the behavior of the flock as a whole.